Stay, and I'll hand you a permission slip you're rarely given online. You do not owe the world a take. Not today, not by noon, not ever on demand. The attention economy runs on latency compression. Convert a stimulus into a stance before the doubt can arrive. That's how feeds turn people into vending machines for certainty. The unknowing advantage is refusing the conversion. It isn't ignorance and it isn't apathy. It's jurisdiction declining to let prediction engines script your mouth. When the Buddhist canon praises not knowing, it isn't exalting blankness. It's protecting contact from commentary long enough for intelligence to hatch. Hot takes promise power and sell dependency. They outsource your first frame to the tribe that shouts fastest. Not knowing breaks the lease. The minute you are allowed to say, this hasn't landed yet, you reopen the only room where freedom can work, the gap between sensation and story. That gap terrifies platforms and pundits because it cannot be harvested for instant alignment. It also terrifies your vanity because it cannot be screenshot as authority. Here's the provocation this episode keeps pressing. Certainty is cheap. Consequences are expensive. The internet pays you in applause for the former while billing you, and often strangers, for the latter. The unknowing stance flips the economy. It makes consequences visible before you weld your identity to them. It lets the object be an object, event, person, claim, without the immediate mortgage of what this says about me. You will not leave with a system or a worksheet. You will leave with a taste for intellectual oxygen, air your takes can't breathe if they can't pass a pulse check. If that sounds small, remember, whole wars of words are fueled by the inability to stand in a room and say, I'll hear more. The monk's insult to the influencer is simple. Silence that listens is not the absence of thought. It's the refusal to submit thought to quotas. Pipeline is boring because it's everywhere. Ping pain / pleasure premise posture performance. First the ping, a headline, a face, a clip. Then the body assigns valence, a bodily yes, no, heat, cool. In milliseconds, your mind drafts a premise, what kind of thing this is. Next comes posture, how a person like me should lean. Finally, performance, a share, a sentence, a stance that buys belonging. Where does not knowing live? Between premise and posture. Contact and feeling are not crimes. They're physics. But the premise you reach for, this is obviously X, is where capture begins. Unknowing pauses there, not forever, just long enough to deprivatize the event. You let it belong to itself before you can script it into your costume drama. From the outside, that pause looks like weakness. Inside, it's raw leverage. The room remains editable. You remain reachable. The other party remains human. Watch how quickly the pipeline punishes hesitation. The culture of instant moral clarity breeds performative omniscience. If you don't already know, you're suspect. But the monastery knew a long time ago what the lab keeps rediscovering. Confidence is an effect, not evidence. The body adores closure because closure lowers metabolic cost. The market adores closure because closure is shareable. Unknowing refuses to pay in that currency. This is not a call to paralysis. It is a call to sequence, observation before inference, inquiry before ideology, consequences before applause. When you grant yourself that order, your statements shrink and harden. Fewer adjectives, more nouns, fewer universals, more receipts. You'll be louder less often, and when you are loud, it will land. Unknowing doesn't make you quiet, it makes you countable. A common slur. If you say you don't know, you dodge responsibility backward. The fastest way to harm is to confuse speed with care. Declaring before checking is how we turn strangers into screens for our inner weather. The unknowing stance is a protective ethic. It keeps the organism from converting its felt need for resolution into someone else's problem. Consider conflict. When you already know the other, you stop seeing. Your story eats their face. Unknowing suspends that appetite. It doesn't sanctify neutrality, it disarms projection. You keep naming behaviors and boundaries firmly, but you release the pleasure of possessing their interior. That move preserves accountability without theft. You may still say no, still demand remedy, still send bills. You just stop writing fiction to justify your heat. Consider public events. Instant punditry performs compassion while outsourcing repair to luck. Unknowing reverses that order. Listen, verify, specify, act. No, I won't hand you tactics. I'm pointing at choreography. The point isn't to be late. The point is to be answerable, to speak in a way that can be questioned without collapsing your identity. The ethical dividend of not knowing is humility with teeth. You become correctable at the same speed you become moved. That's how trust accrues in rooms where certainty used to colonize every silence. The adults you want to keep around are not the ones who always know. They're the ones who can say, not yet, without flinching, and I was wrong, without bargaining. Unknowing is how those sentences survive your pride. Ambiguity can't be targeted. It doesn't resolve into buyer profiles. A feed cannot sell maybe. That's why your interfaces shove you toward binary posture for against sacred profane genius fraud. Ambiguity is unhurried oxygen, and oxygen doesn't trend. Not knowing is therefore a counter-algorithmic practice, even if you never use that word. When you permit unresolved contact, you starve the loop that stitches identity from triggers. Your scroll slows, your aboutness production drops, your friends can't predict your lines from your team jersey. The machine reads you as a poor investment. That is not a loss. That is a regained sovereignty. There's a reason contemplative traditions protect don't know with ritual. It isn't to worship fog, it's to prevent the speed of symbol. Stance from turning every encounter into propaganda. Symbols are fine, stances are necessary, but middle speeds matter. Without mid-speed ambiguity, nuance dies, and people become avatars for your scripts. You'll hear the insult, fence sitter, coward, coward, with candles. Wear it lightly. The people who need your clarity will get it once it's earned. Meanwhile, the people who needed your uncertainty will finally have a room to step into. Unknowing doesn't say, it's all grey. It says, the color wheel is bigger than my mood. Platforms can't auction that sentence, which is precisely why you must keep it. The paradox. The voices we end up trusting most are often the least invested in sounding certain before contact. Real expertise doesn't fear the sentence, we don't yet have enough signal, because it knows what good signal tastes like. Unknowing becomes a quality filter. It blocks the performance of mastery long enough for mastery to check its instruments. This matters beyond science. In relationships, unknowing keeps love from becoming surveillance. In leadership, it keeps decisiveness from becoming theater. In spiritual rooms, it prevents revelation from annexing the real. The sequence repeats. Absence of stance, thicker, seeing smaller, harder sentences, decisions that trade spectacle for consequence. We mistake volume for truth because volume arrives faster. The unknowing advantage is brute, delayed speech that survives daylight. The sentence built after a pause tends to carry fewer hostages, fewer implications you'll have to defend next week, fewer people you'll have to punish to save face. That's why unknowing outperforms, takes over time. It reduces repair cost. You do not have to cosplay a novice to get here. Wear your stripes. Keep your data. Unknowing isn't self-erasure, it's a coolant. It lets the engine of your skill run hot without melting the room. Then when you finally say, "This is what I see," the sentence lands like a tool, not a brand extension. Let's burn the fakes. Passivity dresses as not knowing when it's really conflict avoidance. The tell is drift. Decisions slide to the strongest personality while you praise openness. That's abdication, not humility. Nihilism dresses as not knowing when it treats all claims as equally void. The tell is cruelty. If nothing is knowable, nothing is owed. That's sophistry posed as depth. Empty vibes dress as not knowing when aesthetics replace engagement. The tell is the aftertaste. No one is helped, but everyone looked serene. True unknowing has direction. It ends in contact, not avoidance. In selection, not drift. In consequence, not theatre. It allows for no, yes, and not yet, and keeps each on the hook for reality. It doesn't worship indecision, it disciplines decision so that it serves the room instead of the persona. Another counterfeit, mystery as brand. If your uncertainty earns you awe and immunity, it's not unknowing. It's charisma laundering. Refuse it. Let people question your pause. Let them see the work you do in it. If your not knowing can't survive questions, it isn't protecting truth. It's sheltering ego. The shortest test. When you say, "I don't know," does someone else's risk go up or down? If it goes up, you're hiding. If it goes down, you're probably doing it right. The world is full of takes. It is short on shelter. Rooms where intelligence can form without being bullied by tempo. Keep building those rooms. Societies decay when tempo replaces testimony, when the fastest claim outruns the slowest fact. Unknowing is a civic act because it refuses to sell time to the highest bidder. It makes space for witnesses to finish their sentences, for data to finish its arc, for harm to finish being named before policy slams down. In a crisis, not knowing is paradoxically faster long term. Panic policy is cheap to pass and expensive to repair. The stance that says, "This is provisional, we'll revisit in 48 hours," sounds weak to people addicted to hero narratives. But when revisiting becomes culture, so does course correction. Unknowing builds institutions that can admit error without imploding. That's how trust becomes infrastructure rather than a mood we borrow from nostalgia. At home, the Civic repeats in miniature. Children learn that silence can be safe. Partners learn that pause can be respect. Teams learn that "I don't know yet" doesn't signal incompetence, it signals creditworthiness. Your word won't outpace your eyes. There's no glamour here. There is survival. Algorithmic certainty will keep accelerating until bodies pay. The only break that doesn't break people is the cultural right to doubt in public without being exiled. Not knowing is that right exercised out loud with receipts. Here's the sentence I want carved above every timeline. You are not late if you are honest. The unknowing advantage isn't a vibe. It's a refusal to be conscripted by tempo into saying what your eyes haven't earned. Keep your standards. Keep your care. Just give contact the first bite, not your brand. Say "not yet" and pay for it. Let it cost you applause. Then when you finally speak, make it small, hard, and payable, a sentence that can be questioned without you collapsing. a promise that can be checked without you raging. That's how truth survives the age of speed, not by winning the race, but by changing the track. If your certainty arrives faster than your seeing, it belongs to whoever owns your feed. Keep the pause. Let the world earn your words, or it doesn't get them.